It was May 2018 when Dr. Mackereth was appointed as a health and disability assessor for the Department for Work and Pensions. He says he was sacked because his Christian beliefs meant he refused to use the pronouns he or she in connection with transgender clients. He says, in his view, it is not medically possible to change sex, and any attempt to do so is a rebellion against God. In a statement to the tribunal, the doctor said, "The argument arises because of my refusal to make an abstract ideological pledge to call any 6 feet tall bearded man madam on a whim."
First of all, I fight it as a Christian for my own conscience sake, because I believe that God made mankind male and female and that cannot change. But also because when we misuse pronouns like this, the identity of every single one of us is being challenged. And also because if we're forced to use language in a certain way, our freedom as people is taken away from us.
In the UK, a Christian doctor who was sacked after refusing to use female pronouns when discussing a transgender woman has lost his legal fight against his former employers. In an interview with RT, Dr. David Mackereth explained why he refused to back down in the dispute.
Because I'm a Christian, I would consider it to be utterly dishonest to use pronouns in that way and sinful, deeply affecting my Christian faith and my walk with God. And secondly, as a doctor, it's quite simply unscientific and unproven, and therefore, again, in good conscience, I can't do that. I've never refused to treat any patient of whatever background they come from. The question here is whether I can be forced to do something and to say something which goes deeply against my conscience. I didn't set out to offend anybody. I don't desire to offend anybody, but I desire not to be forced to do something that I cannot do.
Dr. David Mackereth worked for Britain's National Health Service for 26 years. Despite that, he was subsequently sacked after a conversation with his boss during which he refused, this is where it gets complicated, hypothetically to refer to, quote, a 6 foot tall bearded man as madam. And while the doctor insists his employers discriminated against his religious beliefs, an employment tribunal nonetheless ruled that his objection was incompatible with human dignity.
A lack of belief in transgenderism and conscientious objection to transgenderism, in our judgment, are incompatible with human dignity and conflict with the fundamental rights of others. Insofar as those beliefs form part of his wider faith also does not satisfy the requirement of being worthy of respect in a democratic society.
Dr. Mackereth says the ruling against him sets a dangerous precedent, though.
I was taken off the shop floor and I say interrogated, or the judges denied that, about what I believed by my manager. Are people going to be pulled off the shop floor in the National Health Service now and interrogated about their beliefs? There's a really difficult precedents that have been set from my case. And that's why we're really quite shocked at the outcome. 4 precedents here, very quickly. The first one is that you're not allowed not to believe the transgender movement's maxims. The second one is compelled speech. The third precedent is that belief that God made us male and female and that therefore sex and pronouns are fixed is not allowable. And the fourth is that core Christian beliefs, all Christianity, is not compatible with modern society or human dignity. These are very big precedents. Each one of them is a huge blow to freedom.
We asked human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell and also Christian legal activist Andrew Williams for their views on the story.
Conflicted fundamentally with his faith and also with his belief as a doctor and how best to treat such a patient. It's a religion which actually helps people to understand who they are, made in the image of God, male and female.
There are some passages in the Bible which are in conflict with basic human rights. I mean, St. Paul in the New Testament seemed to endorse slavery. In the Old Testament, it justifies the killing of gay and lesbian people. So, we'd have to grapple with this.
The reality for him is this, that the way in which really to help someone who is confused about their gender is to help them to live in the biological gender in which they were born. That would certainly be his way, his belief of how to look after a person who is confused about their gender.
Trans people are not confused. They have a genuine, sincere, overwhelming belief that they are something other than they were assigned at birth.
forcing society, forcing medics, forcing teachers, forcing doctors, forcing the general public at large, forcing us all to say something that is not true, is not kind, it's not compassionate to someone that is confused about their gender.
I think it's very offensive for Andrea to say that, and I'm sure she would not want to add to the suffering and indeed perceived non-recognition or denial that trans people so often face. That is not delusional, it's not being dishonest, it's not avoiding the truth. It is the reality that gender is a spectrum. We now live in a more open, liberal, tolerant society where people no longer have the fear they have to hide away and suppress their desires.
We live in a more confused and hurting and broken society.
Well,
a confused and hurting society.
Can you let me finish,
a society where children... Well, I think that we're in a debate.
Andrea,
we're in a debate here.
Can you please let me speak? They are who they are. And to call them confused is deeply and profoundly insulting.
The reality was he realised that the very statement of saying that you're made male and female was a statement that caused offence. The reality is that for saying that, you get left out in the cold. The reality is that our children are no longer being taught that they are boys and girls. They're being taught extraordinary things where the sexualisation of our children in culture is absolutely huge, and where that's all leading is to a great confusion and a great chaos.